It's time to get sexy on Secular Sexuality.
Oh. We just love our music here.
Mm-hmm. How about that fancy new animation, huh?
That was
I
pretty snazzy.
love
Right?
it.
Mm-hmm.
It's good stuff. It's good
I
stuff.
love
Very
it.
nice.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hello, and welcome to Secular Sexuality. My name is Megan Bonner. Joining me, as always, is my co-host.
Howdy, I'm Christy Powell.
And with us today is special guest.
Clare Wuellner.
And you, among other wonderful things, are also you said, on the board or the director?
I'm president of the board of Foundation Beyond Belief. But the reason you asked me here is because of we're going to talk about something. I shouldn't give away what we're talking about. You guys.
Big mystery, big mystery. We definitely didn't absolutely announce it on the last
after
episode.
This commercial break.
We did not announce it on the last live episode. We didn't announce it like in the Discord. We didn't announce it anywhere. Tonight is hashtag #MeToo, a love story. So tonight we're going to be going over a few things, including the history of Me Too, and also some personal experiences and just general topics and stories related to Me Too, because as we all know, it is a very broad and very deep,
I see what you did there.
deep topic.
It's also heated.
Also heated.
Yes.
Yes.
Controversial and misunderstood.
By
a
many.
great many.
Yeah. Yep. So to dive in to begin with, Claire, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you wanted to touch on with Me Too tonight?
Right. I had a super interesting experience last night. I wasn't expecting it to go like it did. Center for Inquiry had a discussion around the Me Too movement, and the way it was advertised was that it was going to be about. It was Steve. Well, I'm not sure I should throw anybody under the bus.
Probably not.
Somebody put out the advertisement, and it said that they were going to be talking about whether men should be scared, whether boys and men should be scared, because President Trump had just said that. The person's wife said, that's not cool. Me Too isn't about what's going on with the men. It's about what's going on with women, and you need to reframe that, re-advertise it, and get a woman to lead the discussion. So he called me, which was fine. And I went thinking we're going to talk about Me Too.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And there were 8 people there, maybe 9. 3 were women, including me. And I said, okay, what do you got, people? And let's start this discussion. And the very first thing the guy says, man, when I get on elevators, I hate this. I'm so afraid that, I might have to get off, because what if she turns me in if I just, look at her wrong or something? And I'm thinking, oh boy. And then another guy, he starts talking about how he's afraid to get married, and he's afraid of all these things, and afraid of women. And I'm thinking, wow.
Man who's afraid of commitment. That's really, this is a cultural moment. This is something new.
Now, take it easy on all these guys, because what I didn't realize was that they had not seen the new framing, and they did not realize that I was basing everything on the new framing. So I'm coming at this from one way, and they're coming from another way, and very much cross purposes. And I'm thinking I've got a room full of MRAs, men's rights activist people. I'm like, Jesus Christ. And I just start to get really pissed off. And then I realize what's going on. And what was fascinating was by the end of the evening, I think everybody felt heard. It's not so much that men are afraid and we should be, oh, poor men. It's that what they were talking about is that because of the way things are, they have to learn to navigate new ways. That's unfortunate, but true. Over and over it came up. So I'm interested in a girl, and I don't know how to ask her out. And I'm like, ask her, talk to her, and
use words.
Use your words. I couldn't be that nasty. But I was really rather surprised because in the case of that particular comment, because it assumed that women aren't going to respond like people. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of assumption of bad faith on women's part, that we are like
out to get them.
Yeah, we like falsely accusing men, and we send mixed messages, and we're all this sort of stuff, and it was frustrating for me for so many reasons. Men are just as confusing to women, I think. I think that there's a lot of disconnect between the genders. I'm sure Christy could go on about this quite a bit.
I mean, as somebody with a very disconnected gender, I hear you.
Right.
And we've touched on it.
Right. So, yeah, there's that, and then the fact that it felt like they were down on women, and I'm just going to say this. I had a concussion in April, and I sometimes kind of revert, and I'm having a hard time with it tonight. So forgive me if I lose track of what I'm saying. Anyway, it was super fascinating. I've got a lot out of it because I felt like, guys are coming up in a different world. I'm old enough, God, this is scary, that when I dated at the beginning, guys always paid for dinner. They drove. They asked. It was very clear cut. You didn't have any concerns about, do I do this? Do I not do this? Do I?
There was like a structure to the whole thing.
And now it's just all up in the air. But I got married at 37, and by that time, it's everybody pays for their own. The guys can ask girls can ask guys, et cetera, et cetera. So, and these folks, I'm married now and have been for 17 years. Good God. And so I don't have to navigate this at all. These people were 29, 30. They're right in the middle of this big transition. I think it is tricky for them. My kids, my son and daughter, 15 and 13 respectively, they get it. It's like they're coming up, and it's normal. So, and that's just my small sample size. Don't take that like the whole world is that way. But I kind of get where they're coming from. Just the same, I'm not particularly clear that he heard that as afraid as he is, he might lose a job. I'm afraid I might get killed. And he's like, well, men get killed too. I'm like, yes. But
also, all lives matter.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're necessarily here to talk about.
Right. It's like
it's exactly that.
It's statistics and likelihood over paranoia.
And here was what I just dearly loved, and I'm going to give some advice to people. Didn't ask for advice.
They're here.
Yeah, right. I am 53, and
don't look it.
Oh, you're so sweet. And I look back at my younger person, excuse me, and I know so much more. And since I know that, when somebody is older than me and they tell me something, I listen. And I don't see a lot of young people doing that. I sound like an old, crusty fart right now. But at this thing, there was a guy who was 76 or 7. The wisdom he laid down was amazing. He could really say what needed to be said to these young men, and they could hear it. Like the guy who was talking about, I asked this woman out, or no, I told her a joke and she laughed. I thought we were a friend. This is at work. And then the next day, HR pulls me aside, and he says, listen, she's trying to survive. She's not your friend. You're working with her. She has to behave a certain way to maintain the relationship and keep her job. You need to learn there. It was beautiful the way he did it, much more kindly than I just did.
Sure.
It was amazing. So when someone with more experience than you talks, listen. And if somebody is a part of the demographic that has the experience, listen. That was the other thing. There were people who insisted that they knew about women's plights, and they were not women. And I said, no. I said, I have friends who are people of color, lots of them, dear friends since childhood. I'm still a racist. I mean, that's inherent in our society. I'm racist.
And not just society. I think it's inherent in just being human because we are tribal.
Yeah. Yeah, but the thing is that I'm doing, and if you're smart, is you try to push that back as much as possible. Anyhow, it was a fascinating experience, and now we can talk more about Me Too in other respects. Back to you.
Yeah, of course, spotlight. I think it's important to add that, yes, responding to someone in the YouTube chat, that, yes, we do acknowledge that many conservatives or many more right-leaning people do also understand and can sympathize with the Me Too movement. And, of course, the female counterparts can sympathize with the Me Too movement. But I think it's important to understand the difference between the female counterparts can empathize with the Me Too movement. It's important to be able to tell the difference between sympathize and empathize. In a way, men will only ever be able to sympathize. They will never be able to truly empathize with the situation because they've never been a woman. This is, of course, barring transgender women.
I was going to say the number one for transgender folk who reverse the procedure after having undergone gender-affirming surgery, the number one reason is men who biologically male
transitioning to female.
I'm so sorry, my brain. Transitioning to female, want to help me.
It's okay. Transition back to
medically transition back to their
their birth thing, because they found that being a woman sucked so bad.
Societally was just too much shit.
Right. And then there are the men who go online and act as women, and they are barraged with the things that women put up.
Harassed.
Yeah. And in all of these cases, what infuriates me is people pass these around like, see. Why the fuck aren't you listening to women saying it? Why does it take someone who's been in your world for it to be legitimate?
Going to female to going back to male to say, no, I've experienced this.
Or a man saying, I've experienced it now. I kind of get it. I understand. You know part of it, honey. Because I just last night I wrote down a quick list of Me Too moments in my life, and people think that it's like wolf whistles on the thing. No, I'm talking about slaps on the ass at work from your boss, and when you turn him in, he confronts you and says, I hear you have a problem. The fuck?
Been there.
Date rape. I mean, I didn't get a job because I wasn't willing to sleep with someone.
Yep.
And that's a big thing in academia. There are not a whole lot of jobs to be had in postdoctoral positions in academia, in entomology, which is what I was.
Well, and the credentialing process is such that it really is about networking. It really is about who you know, who likes you, who's willing to go to bat for you.
Yeah.
And that can turn into an old boys club very quickly.
Apparently a good fuck can change that real quick.
Yeah. Well, it was certainly, oh God. And that's not even talking about my advisor who, when we were all out as a group, grabbed my ass so hard that I had to turn physically to torque my butt out of his hand. And
vice grip.
Yeah. And then later on, when this was upsetting to me because I turned it in, I talked to HR but didn't formally prosecute because it would end my career.
Yep.
It would end it.
Yep.
For him, it would be probably slap on the wrist and keep on going. But it kept me up at night, and he and I talked about it, and he said, oh, it sounds like you need to get some counseling. I'm like, and, laying it at my feet. And then...
yeah, sure. If the other guy gets some repercussions too.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. Nearly everyone, all of my friends, graduate student friends, just like I was bad. You know, I couldn't be talked to because I was.
You upset the apple cart.
Yeah, I was going to take down their hero or whatever.
No.
And even though this guy had been accused multiple times and stuff, you haven't heard of apple cart?
No.
Oh, I feel so fucking old.
How old am I?
No, I think it also has something to do with where we were all raised.
Yes,
So.
Midwest. Anyway. Yeah, and that's just, I have 20-something incidences like that. Not just wolf calls, like seriously changing my life course things.
Yep.
And that's not the same as, oh, I was falsely accused of sexual harassment at work once. Maybe even I lost my job at it. Okay,
Right.
fine. They kept saying it's not a competition. I'm saying, no, I know it's not a competition. I'm just saying to you that whatever you can bring to the table, it's nothing compared to what women have gone through. I am sorry.
There's a little bit of triaging that needs to go on, because do men have concerns about the current cultural moment? I would argue that, yes, there are some legitimate concerns out there, but to shine the spotlight on that, to give the microphone to how difficult it is to be a man in this day and age, is to totally miss the boat.
By and far.
you.
Yes, thank you.
It's amazing how I just say like the obvious thing, and the two women are here on the Me Too episode are supposed to be like, good job, congratulations.
Well, see, here's the thing.
Yes, congrats.
Whoever is watching right now, did you believe him? That's what happened over and over again last night. I would go on and on. Is it them? Are you? What are your pronouns?
Oh, he, him.
Okay.
Yeah.
They would. I would say something, and
We check on
they
this
just-
podcast.
Yes, and I know yours. And they would they would not. They would give me pushback.
Right.
And
Sure.
then the man would say it like da da da, and they'd be like,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay, we get it.
yeah. So.
And I think it's important to touch on momentarily, one, what Christy said about, by and large, yes, there are some concerns, but by and large, the Me Too movement has brought out more actual offenders than non-offenders, let's be honest.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And to Claire's point, what are all the things that aren't necessarily, that we can cover under Me Too that are not strictly sexual harassment or abuse? It's just being a woman in a man's world. I know I can say safely that I have been refused jobs and have been told point blank to my face that because that I was too confident for a woman. I was, as a woman, I was too confident in my ability to do the job because it was a management role. I was too confident. And I wonder at what point, and I can look back on the experience and think, was I being overly confident, right? Was I being kind of dickish? No, I was just confident and said, yes, I can fucking do this job. And the person specifically said, no, you are too confident that you are able to do this job. Then if I'm too confident, at what point on the scale is confident enough but not too confident?
Yeah, the rules are very different for women. I had so many, in academia, I had ideas stolen.
And this is in the last 5 years.
Right. There's a very different standard. If I point out something that's wrong, I'm a bitch. If another guy does it, he's brilliant. If I get pissed
competent.
off, if I get pissed off, I'm being hysterical and emotional. If they get pissed off, they're passionate. And these are all like almost trite when I say them, but it's freaking true.
It happens.
Yeah, it does.
All the fucking time.
All the time. It's wallpaper for women. It is just wallpaper. Like we could go into how being a woman affects how you live. For instance, the guy who was talking about being on an elevator and being concerned that he would, maybe if he looked at her wrong, he would get accused of sexual harassment or something. I said, when I get on an elevator with a man, or a man gets on an elevator and I'm already on it, what do you think I'm thinking about? He said, I haven't a clue. And this was a guy who said he'd lived with women and had aunts and all this stuff, and so he knew about women. I'm like, are you going to rape me?
Yeah, it's not
it's like, take a
potentially will
second.
there be some HR conversations.
Extreme violation. And and the whole thing where, men can get hurt too, men hurt men. I'm like, okay, yeah, but I don't think that's the same as rape. And here is a statistic for you. 70% of rape or sexual assault victims experience moderate to severe distress, a larger percentage of time than for any other violent crime. 70%. Being raped is not the same as being burgled, bludgeoned, picked on. Nothing. It is nothing like it.
It's a different type of invasion of bodily autonomy and privacy.
It is just, oh my God.
It's, because when your house gets burgled, sure, it's
a violation for sure.
That's a violation, and it's an invasion of privacy. What it is not an invasion of your personal bubble. It's not an invasion of your body. Your body. Sex is supposed to be a happy, wonderful, connecting thing, and to take it and weaponize it. It can be.
Yeah, if you weaponize something that's like that, it isn't just that it's an awful thing. It changes it for you for the rest of your life in some cases. It's destroyed a lifetime of how you go about the whole process of sex. It's a big goddamn deal.
It is. It's a very big deal that many of us have had to deal with.
Yeah.
Well, and to that point, as you're talking about the experience of it and how it's significantly different from being burglarized or something along those lines, I feel like one of the ways that it's most significantly different is if your car gets broken into, or if somebody ever gets physically assaulted or hurt or, forbid, murdered or something along those lines, the immediate response is going to be, I can't believe that happened to you. Right. I am so sorry.
It's not.
And that's very, very different from what we so often see in cases of rape or sexual assault. What were you doing on that street at that time of night? How much did you have to drink? These types of questions don't come up. I mean, if my idiot friend gets their house broken into for like the third time, I might start to ask, why don't you start locking your door? This is ridiculous. But that is considered like a pretty aberrant reaction to somebody having their house broken into.
I mean, barring having the, Robin Hood Men in Tights chastity belt for anyone.
Call the locksmith!
You get that reference.
Yeah.
Barring having one of those, you don't get it. If you are a man, you just don't get it. And it's okay. We don't expect you to get it fully. We don't expect you to be able to empathize with that. What we expect is some fucking consideration and some believability. Not, what were you wearing? Oh, I'm sorry I gave you blue balls. I'm sorry. No. Blue balls is one thing. Guess what? Women can get it too. But you know what? We don't go around raping men at the same rates. So maybe take a moment and think, and then jack off in the back alley. Whatever. Don't fucking rape us. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Sorry, is that
yeah? You're looking over to me like, and for a rebuttal, I don't. I got nothing other than to say how devastating and how messed up are the priorities, right? Because we have this false dichotomy where we're having a female accuser talking about this person who has raped them and presenting it in that way. And then we take it and we step back and we say, okay, the scales of justice, what's the burden of proof? Let's find some evidence. And that's the way our legal system is set up, and that's more or less the way that it ought to be. But we create this completely false equivalency between this idea of being accused of rape and this situation of actually being raped.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't necessarily planning on sharing this story tonight, but one of the defining experiences of my adolescence was a very false accusation by a romantic partner of physical assault and abuse. And that didn't happen, but it was a really damaging experience for me, and it sucked. And to all of the mothers that are concerned about their 14-year-old boys being accused of these sorts of things, I recognize that, yeah, it sucks. However, it is so rare that is happening. It is not a common experience. I mean, it's very hard to quantify these kinds of things, but you can do some research, and there are numbers out there that are reasonably verifiable. Most of them range between 2 and 10% of all men will at some point be accused falsely of some form of sexual assault or abuse, rape being included in that umbrella. Maybe as many as 5% of all men will at some point face some sort of false accusation. That sucks. That's not great.
And it can be traumatizing. I want to acknowledge
problematic.
That.
It sucks.
Yeah.
However, something like 1,000% of all women will experience some form of sexual harassment, and in the back of their mind, no matter how gentle or not the worst it could be that experience might be for them, there is a strong conceptualization that it could very quickly escalate and nothing's going to happen. That's a very strong reality for all women living in America right now, and very much more so 30, 40 years ago. And so it is deeply ingrained in our cultural subconscious and just completely defining to, I have to assume, the experience of being a woman at any age right now, even if you have never gotten anywhere close to, and I don't think that that's likely true of damn near any woman I could interview, but even if I could find a woman who had never been directly affected by any form of harassment, assault, or quid pro quo, these various ways of patriarchal power coming down on them, they've, at the very least, always had that fear in the back of their minds. And it has affected their actions. It has affected their comfort. It has affected their basic sense of calm and decency in almost every professional, social, romantic, personal choice that they've made. Am I off base here?
No.
Not at all.
When I go into a restroom, I'm not afraid of transgender folk. I'm afraid of there being a man in the stall, and I don't know a woman who just waltzes right into a public restroom. You open the door and check.
You look.
You always do.
And ever since the 90s, you also look in the toilet to make sure there's not a camera.
Yeah, this is true. Let's see, what else? We lock our cars. We walk to our cars with our keys between our fingers.
Yep, like brass knuckles.
Yeah, the front door is always locked. We are constantly concerned about what's going on around us. Walk at night, that's just, forget it.
I mean, and if you do, I mean, you
gotta
are
be
constantly.
With somebody. Oh,
well,
God,
no,
I'm terrified.
If you're by yourself, you are. If you are wearing earbuds, you're not actually listening to anything.
Right.
You are listening to the world around you to tell you if there is a scrape, if there is a movement somewhere, behind you, beside you, in front of you.
Yeah. I walk with a friend. Well, it hasn't happened for a while because sleep is important to me right now. But she gets up very early, and I meet her, and we walk. The only reason I can walk in the dark to meet her is because I have my dog. And even then, I'm constantly watching.
Because you know it's not necessarily the best guard dog ever.
Right, yeah. She's loud, but she's sweet. Yeah. But, it's a different world. It's a very different world. If a man pisses people off, they'll say, "Oh, he's an asshole," and he's a da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And if a woman pisses people off, I'm going to come and I'm going to do horrible things to you. It's not the same world for us. When I decided to become a public figure in atheism, I had to think really hard about it because I have friends who have gone through hell because they're female and they're active in this. And I just hope I can keep doing this.
For me, it was not to become a personality, as they say on Discord, was not a difficult decision for me, but there was some thought. Thankfully, I do not have any family close to me, distance-wise. And the friends I've made at the ACA and at work, and, you know, a few others out there. But generally speaking, I don't have, and this is little insight to you guys out there, what we think about. Not just if we can be hurt, but who else can be hurt.
Yeah, I had to wait until my kids were old enough that I could ask them what their feelings were on it, and they'd be old enough to really understand what that meant. And you know, my husband's involved too. He's been harassed because of my being active in this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, just the simple experience that you and I have had on this show, Megan. I mean, here I am. I mean, we're both shockingly good looking. I think that's, you know, equally so. I mean, somewhat less equal over there, but, you know, we're both gorgeous.
Yeah.
Clearly.
I chose to get rid of my hair. Thank you very much. And for the record, more than one person in the chat is currently commenting on how adorable and cute my hair is right now.
It is super cute and adorable, but that's kind of exactly my point, because we've been doing this show for a minute, and here I am, this guy, male pronouns, all of that, with my painted fingernails and my long hair
is
and my girly name and all of these things. And you know what? Not a lot of pushback, not a lot of problem. No one's really got an issue.
Commented.
Yeah, and if you dive into the YouTube comments, there's more than one person that has expressed things towards you that have not been expressed towards me.
I've had the
and
same thing.
I hate to shine a spotlight on that, but I mean, here we are doing the same show, the same way. Again, equally gorgeous. And yet the reaction is very different, because the socially acceptable reaction, the range of acceptable reactions, is very different for men. Men are allowed to do things, and I say allowed with the broadest, vaguest conceptualization of the word. We can get away with absolutely things that women can't and don't. And we can talk about how the biology is different and the experiences are somewhat different. And there is something to that, but regardless of your predilections, regardless of your biology, regardless of your desires, etc., you're fucking responsible for your actions. Whether you have an X chromosome or not, whether you have a Y chromosome rather, those are choices that you're making, and you don't get to say it was the testosterone. You know?
Right. I mean, the testosterone. Sure, you can get horny, but
I can and I do.
Okay. Well, good.
I do and I will.
You.
I do too. So you know.
But that.
But you're not making that a problem for me.
That does not alleviate any responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we've come down pretty firmly on this show on this idea that what passes between your ears, the thoughts that you have, the emotions that you experience, those are yours. You don't need to apologize for them. It's fine. Whatever you think, whatever you feel, great. Whatever you say, and whatever you do, you will be held accountable for.
Yep. Thus, the Me Too, which is so good because women are finally saying, you should be held accountable. We're not, a lot of us are not being quiet anymore.
No, and nor should we. For all of you women out there.
But
and men too, who fit into the Me Too mold.
That's my bad, yeah. Men get raped too. A 1 in 10
They do, and they get not
men
just raped; they also get assaulted. But by and large,
our society isn't set up where men are thinking about it a lot, like women are, in terms of how they live their lives and
their day-to-day actions.
There's a shock factor to it when a man experiences it, which is not necessarily to say that the experience is qualitatively easier, but it does mean that there is not all of the horror and dread leading up to, which can directly affect the experience of it. Because if you are dreading that something's going to happen and then it happens, there's a part of your brain that is genetically designed to say, well, fucking I knew it. I knew this was going to happen, and now it's probably going to happen again all of the time. And that dramatically changes the way that you experience that situation versus something that just sort of swoops in as an act of God, as the insurers say, to surprise you.
Hashtag victim blaming. Because victims can also blame themselves.
Oh, yeah. Some of women's worst enemies are themselves and other women, for that matter. I was surprised with the Kavanaugh Ford thing about how many women were completely on Kavanaugh's side. I know
remarkable.
It was few, but it should have been zero.
It's still remarkable.
Yeah. And then the men who didn't find her testimony credible, they picked it apart and so forth. I'm thinking, oh boy, those are the folks who need to listen to women, because I'm telling you, everything that she did, that she talked about, is exactly the sort of way it is. You don't remember the day. I don't remember the day and the date and the whatever of when I was date raped. I can tell you other details quite vividly. And it happened, oh God, 30-something years ago. That doesn't mean it's not valid. It doesn't mean that you can say that, oh, I'm just, I might have thought it up, or you're dead damned wrong. And last Godless Bitches we had, or a couple Godless Bitches ago,
That's a phrase that I've just always wanted to professionally be associated with. A
and
couple of Godless Bitches ago.
You're welcome. Godless Bitches.
Yes, Godless Bitches.
Hey-o.
Woo. Yeah, the peach is in front of my lips, which is really, 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 I win.
Sorry, the fact that the peach is in front of your lips is
in front of my lips. Okay, so
okay.
What was I going to say? Oh, Leanne Cameron came on to our show. She is an expert in sexual trauma, and she did an amazing job of explaining why women don't come forward, what trauma does to a person, and all of the things that people have a fundamental misunderstanding of when it comes to sexual trauma. She was amazing, and you should get her on this show because she was great.
See Godless Bitches.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a good show, if I do say so myself. She used to work at Safe Place, now Safe Alliance, I think, and just experience galore.
Forgive me, I don't want to misspeak. I know I work in mental health here in Austin, Texas, where the Safe Alliance is a big part of what we refer to. Is this a national organization that people should be looking for, or just local?
It's local,
okay.
Yeah.
To Austin, Texas, FYI.
Yeah. It's a great organization. It shelters women, and I suppose men, too, who need a safe place to stay from an abuser or
whatever situation they may be running from.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, really great, smooth fucking segue into the history of Me Too. I have in front of me a timeline that I'd like to go over a little bit with you guys, just to give you a little background. We've all lived it and we've all experienced it, but maybe we did not realize exactly the timing of events.
Well, and it's important to remember how we got here.
Yes.
Because it does feel very muddled at this point. And that's okay. I don't feel like it's fair to level the accusations against the Me Too movement that have maybe been constant criticisms of like Occupy Wall Street and then Black Lives Matter after it of, well, there's no clear message and there's no clear leadership, and that's not how grassroots movements are meant to operate. The idea here is that women are screaming And regardless of the exact agenda, what we're trying to do is draw attention to something. And I feel like that can get really lost over the course of time because it's very easy to dial down the volume on the frustration and start to ask, okay, well, so what? So what? So what? When the so what is, if you're just aware, if you just think about the fact that these things are happening, then the what to do about it will start to become pretty obvious.
Yeah, right. If you're paying attention.
If you're paying attention.
All right, Miss Mega Woman. That's what I call her.
She does.
Mega Woman.
And I love it. It makes me feel more powerful. So, believe it or not, the hashtag Me-Too goes back all the way to 2006.
Yep.
Over 12 years ago now. Tarana Burke coined the phrase Me Too. Burke is a survivor of sexual assault and wanted to do something to help women and girls of color who had also survived sexual violence. So she coined the phrase. Then, believe it or not, literally a year ago, a fucking year ago, 1 year, October 5th, 2017, actress Ashley Judd accuses media mogul Harvey Weinstein in a breaking story by the New York Times. Then on October 12th, Roy Price, head of Amazon Studios, resigns after his producer, Isa or Isla, I can't tell which, Hackett, accuses him of in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter of lewd behavior. October 15th, 2017, Alyssa Milano, Charmed. Anyone
Is
who
that
wants
if we were
sure.
gonna
If we were gonna remember her from
Alyssa
anything,
Milano, that's how we were
Charmed.
gonna do it. That's good to know. That's good for me to know.
Actress Alyssa Milano reignites Me Too with the tweet, "If you have been sexually harassed or assaulted, write Me Too" as a reply to this tweet. Of course, this is in the age of Twitter, so, it took off. On October 18th.
I like the idea that we refer to a year ago as the age of Twitter. Like it's past. I feel like we're kind of done with Twitter. Am I off?
You're off.
A little bit? No?
You're off,
okay,
just
all
a
right.
little.
The cool kids are still doing the Twitter.
They're still doing the tweets,
My beads.
unfortunately. Because the character limit has been expanded.
Yeah, I caught that. I felt like it was a desperate ploy. I don't know.
You can ask them about it. On October 18th of 2017, keeping in mind this is just 12 days later, Olympic gymnast Michaela Maroney tweets that she was sexually assaulted by former team doctor Lawrence, a.k.a. Larry Nasser, who recently has been sentenced to 60 years, that's fucking right, 60 years, in federal prison on child pornography charges. Unfortunately, they were only able to get him on pornography charges and not all of the assault charges from all of the Olympic athletes that he assaulted.
If you are accused, the likelihood that you will actually serve time is
so low.
Extraordinarily small. Out of every 1,000 rapes, actual rapes, it's estimated that 6 will actually go to jail. 6 perpetrators. That's if you actually did it. So.
And that's 6 out of what?
1,000.
Not 100.
1,000.
1,000.
Yes.
I feel so wonderful.
Why don't
to
you
be
come
a woman
forward
right now?
Why don't you come forward? Really?
Well, I think we've probably gone over some of the reasons.
Yeah, I mean, right? Yeah. Going through, you get to deal with people who are obnoxious, and you have to retell the story, and you have to have the rape kit, which is I've understand is just horrendous,
undignified,
and it's re-traumatizing, and so on.
On October 29th of 2017, the first accusation against Kevin Spacey lands.
This was so devastating.
Yeah.
Damn it, Kevin. Damn it.
I want to be the first person to apologize for getting that fucking wrong. You know, when that story originally came out, we were talking about somebody who was in their late 20s, early 30s, having ostensibly consensual sex with somebody who was underage at a point in time where for a man to want to have or express sexual attraction to another man was very sticky and difficult. And this was the narrative that we were presented. And I was very quick to say, well, that's not right. But man, that poor guy, I'm glad that he has changed and that was 30 years ago. And he's definitely never done anything like that since then. And I can kind of see how sort of maybe in the late 80s, how that was possibly a potential. And then the truth started to come out.
At the end of the day.
As we start to scratch the surface on that, we realized that narrative wasn't the reality at all.
No.
This is somebody who had been in an ongoing violent relationship with damn near every subordinate that he worked with. And that to me is devastating.
It's
that
abhorrent.
It took that level of terrible behavior for even the most basic, gentle accusation to surface. And I frankly am a little embarrassed by my response. I mean, if the story had remained true, if that had been the reality of the situation, if not indulgence, at least forgiveness, I think would have been on the table. But the reality is at this juncture, even the faintest whiff of an accusation really should be treated like a giant fire because...
Or you mean like an actual accusation?
Like #believe women?
Something along those lines, because the difficulty of reaching that level of actually making an accusation that bar is so high.
It's very high.
At this point.
I think rather than believe women, believe the victim. Because in this case, it was not a female. It was actually by someone named Anthony Rapp claiming that Spacey had made sexual advances toward him when he was 14 fucking years old. And when you're working together, how the fuck do you not know how old that person is?
Oh, of course he knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the power dynamic, that alone should have just, forget it. Even, let's say he's of age. No. No.
The power dynamic. And then, did you guys want to comment anything else before I continue? No?
No.
Okay.
I'll be quiet for a little bit.
What's up?
November.
Rapid fire.
This is, of course, this all started in October. November 9th of 2017. Washington Post was first published an investigative piece about Republican Senate nominee Roy Moore.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can I tell a story?
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. I love horses. I'm a horsewoman. It's how I got my concussion. I fell off, or a horse threw me. It was really, that's an interesting
Traumatic?
story. It was, yeah. So I don't know where it came through my feed, but there was a photograph of a man on a horse, and the horse was just being tortured. And the man was sitting there with his body language being super old school, ugly Texan. And the horse, he was cool as a cucumber, white shirt, not a sweater. And the horse is worked up into a lather, and his mouth is back, and it's just in a front. Its eyes are kind of, and it's got so much shit on its face. If you know anything about halters and bridles and stuff, I think it had a halter underneath the bridle, and everything was too tight, and the horse was just fucking miserable, and the horse was way too small for him. And I just posted and said, I don't know a damn thing about this guy, but he's an asshole. And guess who? It was Roy Moore.
Oh,
What?
Of course it was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You've
All
seen
right.
him on the horse riding in vote
no.
and all that bullshit. That horse should be rescued. I'm serious. The man is, front to back, top to bottom, asshole.
Yeah, I don't want to overdraw the correlation, but
there is.
I do think that the way that we treat animals, the way that we treat children, and the way that we treat women as men are very highly related.
Property.
Yep. I can relate to that.
I think that that's a very reasonable point.
So to pick this up a little bit, because I do know we have some callers on the line, November 10th was Louis C.K., November 29th was Matt Lauer, November 30th was Garrison Keillor.
Which
November 30th was...
We all have our own, like, not them.
You love NPR.
I mean, Garrison Keillor, that didn't strike me
that
emotionally.
I kind of
but,
thought, I was not surprised, actually.
Oh, wow.
On him, I was not surprised.
Also on November 30th was Russell Simmons. And then on December 6th, Time Magazine ran their front page of Silence Breakers, which were women and also a man, Terry Crews.
And they were all given red carpet treatment, and people were so kind to them and listened and supportive. And
I feel like this is sarcasm.
Oh,
am I wrong?
you're very, very right.
Oh, okay.
You know that. I mean, they probably had to move. They probably got death threats.
And then on December 7th was Al Franken. On December 7th was also Dylan Farrow. Hold on. About Woody Allen.
Yeah, I mean, that's been an ongoing,
Woody Allen is just
devastating
gross.
situation where we got it wrong so long ago and have just sort of dug our feet in.
December 11th was Mario Batali, the chef. December 20th was Gary Goddard, who was a theater prodigy, molesting or attempting to molest boys. January 1st of 2018, more than 300 women of Hollywood from an anti-harassment coalition called Time's Up came out. January 7th, at the 75th Golden Globes. Let's see here.
I mean, it was an awkward moment in television. I mean, you have James Franco being celebrated for a lovely film that deserved to be celebrated, but in the context of, is he an asshole?
That comes up in just a moment.
That's very, that question of can we separate art from the artist? And
sometimes.
I think that we can separate the art from the artist. I don't necessarily know that we should be giving the artist an award.
Right, for the art.
For the art.
Right.
Because their personal life is garbage.
Award other people for the art.
Yeah, absolutely.
On January 7th as well, Oprah Winfrey, in her acceptance speech, mentioned that she was emboldened by the women.
Yeah, it was a
of the media.
Absolutely beautiful speech. She received the Cecil B. DeMille, right? Yeah, the Cecil B. DeMille Award that year, and it was absolutely gorgeous the way that she talked about Sidney Poitier and just her experience as a black woman growing up in a man's world.
January 11th, 2018, James Franco was accused by 5 women of inappropriate behavior. Going further, I mean, shit. It just keeps going like daily. It just keeps going daily. And so I think, again, about Harvey Weinstein, I just keep going through this whole timeline. And
Bill
if you
O'Reilly,
guys,
that was a good one.
Yeah.
Now I remember.
If you guys want to look into it, the Chicago Tribune has a really great timeline and a very detailed timeline of the Me Too movement. But I feel like we've spent enough time. Of course, there's
Bill Cosby.
Bill Cosby, which has been an ongoing story for a couple of years now. But I can only imagine in the context of this social malaise that we're all in, how as a woman, particularly obviously a woman who's in film or in that industry in some way, but really just as a human being, what that must do to your psyche to watch America's dad and civil rights activist. I mean, we all know Tom Hanks currently holds that position, but previously, America's granddad maybe, previous to all of this, that's a very difficult thing to watch and to witness and to be a part of, and to know that it took a fucking lot to get there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
It would be one thing if at the very first assault he had been taken off that pedestal, but to recognize that the burden of proof was so unassailably high that somebody really has to make a career, a literal career out of assaulting women before they start to get called out for it.
Yep. And I think with that,
Here we go.
we are about ready to move to calls. But if you would like to call in, please call 512-686-0279. And we may be able to take your call. So to begin us off this evening a little late than expected or normal is Randy. Randy, you are on the air with Megan, Christy, and Claire.
Hi, Claire. Hi, Megan. Hi, Christy.
Howdy.
Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for staying on the line so long.
Yeah, thanks, Randy.
Well, it was interesting to hear the history. I had looked into it of the Me Too movement, so good refresher, of course. So I wanted to give my perspective because I'm a 52-year-old male. And, I mean, I'm single now, but I've been in relationships. But I'm a little confused about this fear that men are having about the Me Too movement. I don't feel that I have to adjust anything in my relationships to women, be it at the workplace or in the elevator or like if I want to approach someone romantically. I'm just confused. At first, I was confused, but I'm starting to see how the education of men and women, but mostly men since children, is to exert that position of power. And I'm just looking at what happens in schools. You know, a lot of these schools have these dress codes, and basically, the focus of these dress codes is the girls, the teenage girls.
Of course it is.
With teenagers.
It's only girls. Yeah.
Absolutely. You wouldn't want them to distract the guys.
They're
naturally.
teens.
It's like, come on. And first of all, that doesn't speak well of what they think of the poor teenage boys. Because teenage boys are not monsters in and of themselves. They're taught to see, they see that they see other adults and of authority objectifying, because that's I don't know how else to call it, like calling out this teenage girl for her dress in school is objectifying her, or I don't know. Do you agree? I mean, I see it that way.
Yes.
So and then other teenage boys see, or teenage or pre-teenage boys see that. That's they're in the midst of their development. Well, that's what you're taught. And I remember that I sort of was taught that in a sense. And I actually didn't grow up in this country. I grew up in Colombia, South America, and so I think it's probably why it was worse. And they teach you, and then you have peer pressure to exert power. It has nothing to do with being horny or being. No, it's about power showing off. It's kind of like the art of the conquest rather than having a relationship and with other women. And so we're being taught since we're like very young to do this. So.
Yeah, if it was about orgasms, it would be a hell of a lot simpler, right? Because
women can get them too.
Well, that's a consideration. But from a very mechanical, cavalier standpoint, I hesitate to overstress this fact. But if it was all about men desperately seeking orgasm, there are much shorter routes to get to it than pressuring your secretary or raping a stranger. I'm sorry to put it in such
maybe some
callous
self-involved
terms.
ways.
Yes. If orgasm was the only goal, there would clearly be easier ways to get to that point. But you're right. It is about power. It's about domination. It's about security, self-respect, and really warped ideas of these concepts.
Yeah, and if you don't act on that as a teenage boy or a young adult, other males and society are like, oh, you're just a weak, because and I remember clearly when I was on a bus when I was about 17 or 16, and I was with a bunch of my classmates, and there was this girl holding on to the railing, and they were like, oh, touch her butt, you have to touch her butt, and if you didn't, they would be all over you. But that's something that's it's not because men have to be that way. It's because we're being educated in that manner. I guess
Absolutely.
I was not a very good student at learning those power lessons, but
Hey, better on you.
And the thing is, on the other hand, coming back to the present with this fear that men have that whatever they, first of all, I've never been accused of doing anything inappropriate, and I know I would feel bad, but I hope that if I ever did, I would really examine it instead of saying, "Oh, no, I'm an innocent." I would examine what happened and self-reflect and just let that. Because but I've never have been. I never had. And nowadays, I would say it's the opposite. Nowadays, it's the best time to be a man who wants to pursue romantics or sexual relationships, because women are being empowered to say what they want and not what they don't want. So if you approach a woman and you can talk, as you said, and I love that, you talk to them, you know what they want, what they don't want, so you're very clear. You have it's laid out. I know what's the deal here. I don't have to be guessing. I don't have to be afraid, because I'm asking the person, what do you want? You're not interested? Okay, clear. Done. Oh, you want to ask me out? Fantastic.
Can I?
And what do you want? So then I think it's even better for us, and then therefore for women, if we learn that lesson, that now that things are more outspoken, we can know better. We can learn how to talk. And that's going back. We as teenagers and kids, we are not taught also how to talk to people.
I agree, and I think it's important what you said about just using words.
Yeah.
And talking to each other. Because nobody says that talking about what you like and what you don't like can't be sexy.
Exactly.
It can be. And it can be a kind of foreplay. And it's also, it can be a kind of foreplay and a requirement at the same time.
Yeah. And
exactly.
Enthusiastic consent is I can't think of anything more sexy than that.
Yeah,
but
yeah. And I think I remember Matt Dillahunty in one of I think it was the Atheist Experience. He said that if you talk and look for the person that is really enthusiastic into your kinks, so they want to go on the same level, you're going to have the best sex ever. You're going to have the best sex ever, rather than trying to force your kinks or your desires on someone that's not consensual, that's unwilling.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that.
Yeah, I can't believe I haven't brought up bodily autonomy yet, but
we kind of have touched on it
a little bit. But the bodily autonomy piece is so important. It's been said so often that I think it's tropish, but treat women like you would treat your best friend. So would you walk up to your best friend? Well, no. See, mother, then you start getting into the women are property and have to be owned, and you wouldn't treat property. But like your best friend, and would you walk up to them and pat them on the butt, or would you say, "Hey, you look awesome today"? So how would you like to be treated? And treat women like that. We're people. And I'm not saying that to be
a
cute.
sort of different nuanced perspective on that, and I see it as I'm a Spanish interpreter and translator for the public defenders here.
Cool.
And so when we get defendants that are accused of like forcible touching on the subway, and by the way, this happens. There are false accusations, but it's not because the women is believed. Is that the police are kind of very aggressive, so they pick up people, and they're like, sometimes the women is like, I didn't feel anything. So, but and it does happen too. There's creeps touching women and rubbing themselves on the subway. But going to the point of when we're like establishing a defense, sometimes the defense and that the attorneys are promoting this is, well, I'm married and I have daughters, and I would never want someone to do that to my daughters. Therefore, I would never do that. But my perspective is more that it's irrelevant, or it should be irrelevant.
Yes.
If I have a sister or daughter or a girlfriend or daughters, it should be just because she is a person and she has a right to control her body and to prohibit or allow access to her body on her own terms. Regardless, it's not about. I think it's fine to think, oh, I wouldn't want this to happen to my sister, but I think it's even more essential that I don't want this to happen to this other person. I don't want this person to feel violated by me or anyone else just because she is a person and she should have absolute control of what happens to her body, inside and outside, and that's my pro-choice.
Another human being.
It's like if we can't
As a human
personally
being,
relate to it, it doesn't matter. And I say that as a man speaking about men. Unless a man is affected by it, unless we're imagining our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, these people being affected by it, then it's like it didn't really matter because it didn't affect me. And as a man, that's what's important.
Yeah, and also it gets back to the whole property thing. Somebody will stop hitting on someone if they realize, what's the number one way you get rid of somebody who's hitting on you? Oh, I'm with him? Or which is
as a poly person, I find that absolutely devastating.
I'm
but it's the
interested in
reality.
the girl over there.
Yeah,
right. But you have to be somebody's property in order for them to leave you alone. And it should be simple, like not interested, thanks.
that really ought to be enough. You don't need an excuse, an explanation.
Right. And the ease with which one deals with rejection is easier the older you get, right, Randy?
I guess. Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I'm 53, and if somebody says, "Hey, you screwed up," or "I don't like that," or "I don't," whatever, you're grown up at this point. It's when you're younger that it's harder. I've got to say
Yeah, it is true. It is true. And but I think I'm hoping, and this is I don't know if I'm going to see it in my lifetime, but I'm hoping we'd come and with this Me Too movement and. That it will come to the point where these conversations are almost unnecessary, that the norm is that we respect each other's autonomy and we respect other people and there's no property. I mean, I'm hoping that it leads to that. And my only fear, and I think you guys mentioned it, is that it starts to quiet down. I mean, I'm more excited when I see, like the women in the Supreme Court yelling and frustrating, like Orrin Hatch and like these people, and like their attitudes, like, oh, well, how dare you question my male patriarchy? We shouldn't put up with this, I think, is what he said. Yeah. And I just don't want. I hope that it doesn't quiet down. I hope it just gets.
I'm not planning on being quiet. Are you, Megan Woman?
No. Right. No. Okay. That's a solid no.
Yeah.
Well.
So.
Right.
That's my take on this.
Well, Randy, thank you so much for your call.
Thank you
and I think we, in general, can all agree.
Yay.
Yeah.
Raging agreement. Right. Yay.
So we hope to hear from you.
My call.
Oh, of course, and we hope to hear from you again on a different topic.
Okay.
Bye.
That'll be nice. Thanks. Bye.
So, I would say that was a nice, refreshing call.
Yeah.
Not the norm for, guys.
Although I've got to say that the Godless Bitches, we get a lot of email, and I think 90% of it, 95% of it is men writing in saying, right on, keep on doing what you're doing, and it's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then on Facebook, they're the assholes, of course, and they tend to be loud and awful. But I'm heartened by the number of men who jump in and say, "Listen, you're a dick. Back off. You're wrong." And
I mean, I have no problem saying that myself.
yeah, but they don't. But it takes an ally to make difference,
Right.
and it has to be
Someone
men
of the same.
standing up, because otherwise it just doesn't get taken care of. It doesn't
Right.
get changed because I can't change it. The guys have got to change it.
Right. So we're going to actually take a call real quick.
Cool.
Touching on a topic from last week, and wants to talk about the Catholic Church in Pennsylvania. David, you are on with Megan, Christy, and Claire.
Hi, how's your day going?
Pretty good. I hear you want to talk about last week's topic, which we're more than happy to talk about.
I do. Happy might not be the right word, but yeah.
Well,
We hear you.
We are welcoming to the topic.
Yeah, I know. I was being just. So real quick, I'm one of the 95% of men who say you're doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing because you're awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate
Well,
that.
I mean, I think most guys aren't a dick.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
that's that very
Yeah,
small
it's
percent
that
that wrecks it
5%,
for
yeah.
everybody.
Maybe I've just met
they're
an
just loud.
inordinate number.
Oh, yeah.
No, they're
I can
just
introduce
really
you to nice
loud.
guys.
They're louder than us, yeah. So the Catholic Church thing I wanted to touch up real quick because I feel like it's not being reported in depth well enough all that much. And it's just another one of those cases that I feel like it's being shuffled aside like, yeah, the Catholic Church again, let's sweep up these bottles.
Here in Texas, they're actually putting together letters or lists of priests that are credibly accused of improprieties, and they don't even need the victim to come forward, which is what the law would require. They're just going to put those lists out, and they're doing it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a little late.
Snapnetwork.org, SNAP. Network, snapnetwork.org. Just want to mention that again as an incredible international organization we talked about last week.
Yes.
I'm
Moving
sorry,
on.
David, go on.
So I wanted to get into some of the specifics because I actually read a few hundred pages of this report, the Pennsylvania report. By the way, don't do that. It's horrifying.
Oh, I don't
I
know.
had to stop reading because I just couldn't keep going.
Wow.
But it's this is going to sound weird, but let me explain what I mean. It wasn't just rape.
Oh, God.
And what I mean by that is they seem to not have, many of these priests and clergymen seem to have not been satisfied with, now I've had sex with an underage youth or blah, 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 with whatever that sick thing is to complete. It seems a lot of them were making videos and selling them for profit, literally creating child pornography. So those kids have to grow up with the knowledge that not only were they raped, but it was filmed and many people see it.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Which
There
to
were-
me speaks
there
about
were
the
children-
devastating part about all of this. It's not that
I think
simply
after effect, yeah.
rape happened, but that rape happened and then was facilitated, coordinated, protected, covered up. There were these networks of people trading videos back and forth. There were people
Christy,
overseeing all of that.
If I may, I would like to cut in real quick with a trigger warning.
Oh, shoot, sorry.
No, you're okay. I just want to cut in with a trigger warning for anyone who may be triggered by the abuse with the Catholic Church or any church for that matter.
Right.
And that should...
Bring up our puppy.
Well, actually, I think we actually... The
pig?
Pickles...
Current leader.
No, Pickles
the
was
current leader
unseated.
is Sigmund, the trigger kitten,
The trigger kitten.
Okay.
who has
The Trenton.
who has stepped
Sigmund the
over
trigger
Pickles the cuddle pug, but is in a tight race with Jimmy Dean the teacup piglet.
Which I have to
This
say...
all feels very silly
Jimmy-
in the context of this very serious conversation, but that's a little bit of the point. To
Jimmy
to
Dean
add
is
some
dear to
comfort
my heart.
to these difficult things. Really, you're a Jimmy Deaner?
I am, because I met a little piglet one day named Bacon Bits, and I
Okay,
just
Megan
have
and
not
I
been
are
able...
no longer on the same team because I am clearly
I'm
a
with
backer
Megan
of
on this
Sigmund
one.
the trigger kitten.
Okay.
It looks like
Rather than keep us
Sigmund
hidden,
is not on deck right now, but Eventually, when you see Sigmund,
Sigmund,
When you
the
see
trigger
Sigmund,
kitten,
the
currently
trigger
atop of the
kitten.
poll.
The Triton.
Check out our Facebook page. We would love to have you continue to vote for Sigmund,
Vote
the
for the
clear
piglet.
best candidate.
Vote for the pig. Vote for the pig.
David, I appreciate you indulging us briefly,
sorry.
but these moments of levity
No
in these difficult
You need
conversations are vital.
Yeah. Otherwise, you just start spiraling down.
No question.
And then I just
So
get
the
pissed
other
off
thing
again.
Yeah, and the other thing, real quick, I wanted to touch on about that I read, and there's more in there because I couldn't read it all. This is just the second thing I saw that ended up making me stop. When the priest felt that these children were ready to be shared, when they had trained them into the point where the kids knew not to talk, knew not to tell anyone about it, it was this thing that just, they don't talk about. Then they would give the kid a little golden cross to wear around their neck.
Yep,
and
I've
that was
heard
a
that.
symbol to the other priests and clergymen that this one was ready, go ahead and take him to the closet or something because he won't talk.
The
Like-
power dynamic there's another thing, Christy, you were talking about all the ways that this is traumatizing. This isn't just somebody in power. This is someone speaking for God.
Absolutely. And we...
Marking you with his symbol.
Jesus.
That's devastating.
I
Oh, I would like to point out that the wonderful folks in the booth behind me have managed to bring Sigmund to the stage. I would like to say this is clearly the obvious winner, but if you disagree,
Scottish fold,
then
very cute.
maybe
I
check us out on
ardently disagree.
Twitter. We're not on Twitter. But if you agree, then
Facebook.
check us out on Facebook, in which you can continue to vote for Sigmund.
I actually just voted for the petite cup pig.
Thank you for
Okay,
Jimmy
and
Dean.
thank you so much for calling.
Oh, I love Jimmy Dean. All right,
He's
so
cute.
All right.
but yes, back to the really depressing shit.
Yeah,
Yes,
let's go back.
the gold crosses that marked the boys as being available for more abuse.
Yeah, and the gold cross is a pretty common symbol in the U.S. I'm not sure if you knew that, but it's everywhere. So these
Thoroughly
kids
aware.
see those absolutely everywhere and be like, oh, I remember when I wore that, and my priest. Oh wait, like it's so they're gonna just constant reminders forever.
Yep. And then you have to stop and think for a second. Oh wait, was that me or was that
think-
just in
yeah.
Pennsylvania?
I think that's why I broke one of my friends out of his Catholicism. He's I think close to deist now, but like it's he couldn't keep. He understood that when he tied, some portion of that went to the Catholic pedophile show. Like he was literally giving money to protect pedophiles, and as soon as he realized that, he's like, "Oh, nope, I've washed my hands. I'm done with this."
Well, deist is just
I don't know how Catholics don't do that.
yeah, deist is just a hop, skip, and a jump away from atheist.
I know, that's what I told him. I was like, yeah, I remember I was a deist. That was 3 seconds after I realized there wasn't a God, and 2 seconds before I came agnostic, and then 1 second later I was atheist.
Yep.
It's just
just making
another
longer.
word for nothing left to lose. Sorry.
You could have just stopped at nothing.
Nothing don't mean nothing if you ain't free. Sorry. We're coming to you live from Austin, Texas. Home of
Yeah.
Janis Joplin. Thanks so much for listening to me sing.
AKA Dancing with the atheists. Yeah, so I just wanted to get that out real quick, and I wanted to say, I was raised Christian, came out, finally realized I wasn't in my early 20s, and then like literally the past most of a decade has been like going through things I think, going over if I have a reason to think that, and then like fine pick combing the religious things out of my head, and the last thing to go, like you said last week, it's this issue on sex and relationships. I'm terrible at them, so thank you for the show. I really need it.
Hey, we're so
Yes.
glad to have you, and we appreciate you calling in with something important, but also being willing to have fun with us as we sit here and debate which animal is cutest and how this fucking pig needs to go down, guys.
No, the pig. Sorry.
If Megan just like sits straight, it looks like the teacup pig is resting its chin on his head. On her head. which I think is doubly adorable. Like,
there we go. There we go.
oh, I'm on a delay. I can't.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Well, we have, for everyone else, we have currently, not Bacon Bits.
This is Jimmy Dean, the teacup piglet, a dark horse. Dark horse doesn't stand a chance competitor for
yes,
the
it does.
secular sexuality
Look how cute
emotional
this
support
piglet is.
mascot.
Look how cute. Look at that nose.
Look at those
cute.
dead
See?
black
Claire
eyes.
agrees. Claire agrees.
Look into its eyes.
I'm not
Look
picking
into
sides.
its eyes.
I don't want to get
It's
scary.
Kind, cuddly eyes. You know, pigs understand when you're grieving, right? They're like dogs in that way.
They're very intelligent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't say that. Serafina might hear you.
But David, thank you so much for your call.
Thank you guys for the show. I really appreciate it. I'm going to keep watching.
Hey, we
Take care.
appreciate you. Take care.
All right. So again, Jimmy Dean.
We can take Jimmy Dean down, right? Because there's no
We're
more.
They
we're
can-
out
they
of
can take
the
Jimmy Dean
triggering
down.
waters. Jimmy Dean
Okay.
can come down, but we do want to make a real point that
Jimmy
we're
Dean should
still-
win.
Yes, that is a point that some people might make.
And other people are just wrong.
Oh my goodness.
Call back.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
legit. However,
Surely there's a picture out there of a kitten and a pig together, and then everybody could be happy.
Control room, can you get on that stat? A picture of a kitten and a piglet together.
we're sticking with the votes, which you can do on our Facebook page. We would
Sorry.
love to hear from you.
Something from
And
somewhere
now
spoke
our
to me
lovely
and told me to
city.
shut up.
Yes, you know our lovely city.
Alrighty, so here we are.
Something neutral. Okay,
What's next?
so next on deck is a third caller. This is Jose from Mexico, who wants to talk about the scandal and controversy around Miss Universe. Jose, you are on the air with Megan, Christy, and Claire.
Hey guys. How you
Hey,
doing?
inform us.
Yeah.
Please.
What scandal? I'm sorry, I don't know about it.
Maybe
Oh,
we
really?
don't cover pageants as well.
Yeah, not my
I
shtick.
really thought I actually thought this program was going to talk about it, but yeah. So
Oh yeah, she's
know,
got a kid or she's married or something. What is it? Yeah, I think I do.
no,
know what you're talking-
it's about she is an openly transgender participant.
Oh.
Yeah, she's being shitted about it. So yeah, I heard about this a couple of days ago because I don't really keep up with those kinds of things. But so I've heard it firstly for the memes that are being shared about it, and they are just full with transphobia. They are just like non-stop transphobia about it. And they are and actually even pretty misogynistic because even the other participants that are that are cis women, they say like that they disagree about it. They think just cis women should participate and trans
She
women
is a
should.
woman. Mm-hmm. Damn
Yeah,
it.
they don't recognize her.
Well,
as
they're
a woman.
stupid.
They think.
Yep, they're behind the times.
Yeah. So there was a lot of debate about it, and some people actually said like, well, what is stopping men from becoming women and winning all of this contest?
Isn't that
And,
every little
like,
boy's
if it
dream?
wasn't-
To grow up and be Miss Universe? It's so common.
Yeah,
Like
it's
there's a
like-
kit in the aisle at Target for little boys. It's in the boy part, right next to the Power Rangers and
Yeah,
shit.
Army Men.
Right,
And,
and you got
Chuck
your
Armstrong.
Miss Universe starter kit, right? It's what the
And
fuck is wrong with people? God, the sky is falling.
I remember before this was even a thing, like before transgender was even really on the radar, I remember having a couple classmates go out for Halloween, which is coming up, by the way. Everybody dress up. I already have my costume. but who dressed up as older women, right? And their parents thought it was just funny, but you could tell that they really liked
We're vaguely
it.
concerned.
Well, not the parents.
The parents
the
were on
kids.
board.
The parents were on board because they just thought it was like stupid and hilarious. But the kids,
That was what they really wanted to do.
they wanted to do
They
it.
were testing the waters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Not
Yeah,
surprising.
so
I
really,
was very comfortable
was-
at my Powder Puff football game as a cheerleader, which turned out to be very significant later on in life. I guess these moments...
You do you.
Right, but we present it in this sort of like, it has to be like a joke. It has to be a
Right.
funny
It has to be a
ha-ha.
trope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The madness of, the idea that women play football. Like, we
Well-
have to really accentuate it in that way in order to feel comfortable being like, haha, I would never, but like, I'm glad I get to. But haha, isn't this so funny?
Well, I think, and also in this context, it's important to bring in the term TERFs,
Oh, Lordy.
which is, I mean, would you disagree, though?
Oh, they're
exclusionary
awful.
Radical
Yeah.
feminist.
Trans exclusionary
Exclusionary radical
radical
feminist.
feminists. And I think it's important to bring that into the conversation because since we're talking about Miss Universe and a trans person being up for the title of Miss Universe, those feminists who think that trans women have no place in the movement, that's personally, for myself, that's bullshit.
I think the Miss Universe pageant is bullshit. I wish the
I mean,
whole
there's
thing would
that
go away.
too. There's that too.
Yeah, and I'd
But-
also like to acknowledge before it gets away from us that
Yeah.
as hard as women have it, trans
Trans women.
folks, women and
What-
men,
Yeah.
have it way, way harder.
Oh,
the
my
violence
God.
I have somewhere on here. I have to put my eyeballs on
'Cause
stats
For trans women, not only do they have to deal with women's issues, but they have to deal with being trans on top of women's issues.
And frankly, homophobia, which is
Yeah,
not
there's that too.
necessarily like an appropriate application of that particular form of hatred. Not that there is an appropriate one.
I was gonna
but
say.
nevertheless, they often find themselves on the bitter end of that. And the devastating fact is that when we look at assault, when we look at murder, when we look at rape, when we look at all of these different things, trans women of color, suicide, are devastatingly affected in ways that the rest of the population just isn't. I mean, it is something like 20 times more likely that a trans woman of color will
assaulted.
attempt suicide.
Oh.
That as well. I don't mean to misrepresent statistics that I don't directly have in front of me, but the reality is there are people among us
Women.
that are suffering in ways that the rest of us just aren't. And I think that to bring it all back, that could be true whether we were talking about trans women, whether we were talking about gay men, whether we were talking about starving people in Ethiopia. I mean, I don't want to get so broad as to lose a focus, but I do want to suggest that as
Whatever
we're...
title or whatever label.
Yeah. There are people of different stripes. And so when we're talking about Me Too, when we're having this conversation about the way we're treating women specifically in America, yes, there are people who have it worse. And yes, men are affected by the Me Too movement in sometimes negative ways. But all of that really only serves to steal the spotlight, to steal the microphone from those that really, really need it and that could benefit from us taking 5 goddamn seconds to actually pay attention to the billions of women across the world that are being treated in unfair and unjust ways.
I have a statistic for you.
Oh,
Hit me.
please.
Yes. This demographic is twice as likely to have experienced sexual violence than any other demographic. Twice as likely. Can you guess what it is?
Trans women.
Transgender.
Nope. Transgender is worse than women in general, but this is twice than
Cis
both
women,
of
yeah.
them.
Gay?
Both. No. Native American women.
Yeah.
Holy
That's right.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
On the reservation, or on reservations, the
Suicide rates, alcoholism,
is
all of
high,
those are
and the
very,
actual
very high.
Yeah.
conviction rate is.
You want to talk about
extremely low.
Disenfranchisement, yeah, absolutely.
I just,
Yeah.
we really screwed up.
I've seen more than my fair share of documentaries, and I can count myself lucky that I am a couple generations removed from that particular situation, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, anyway, yeah. So the Me Too thing, if you were saying before about how it's, losing focus. Yeah, because we're looking more broadly and starting to discover stuff. We're pulling back the veil, as it were. And as I've posted on my Facebook thing, it's not worse. It's the same. We're just seeing it, and we need to hold each other tight and keep working. Take care of each other, but be brave if you can. I mean, some people it's too dangerous. But
I mean, for those, the most I can say to many of you out there is what I have tattooed on my arm. Which Claire knows.
I love it.
Which is "Just Keep Swimming," which is Dory from Finding Nemo, and is "Just Keep Swimming." That is my mantra. I will freely admit that I suffer from major depressive disorder.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah. And I take medication, but of course that doesn't fix it all of the time. And for those of you out there who are having a horrible time, we love you.
Take care of yourself. Do some self-care.
Self-care. And just keep swimming. For those of you out there who are already swimming and feel like maybe you can take on a little bit more, speak up. It helps everyone in the movement. Not just in the movement, it helps everyone in the world. Claire, can you take this?
I think on the last Godless Bitches that we filmed, Tracy Harris is just so incredibly articulate. I could never hope to be as articulate as she is. But she spoke about the many ways that people can experience everything that's been going on and how you can react to it and doing the best you can, essentially. I'm paraphrasing heavily. The whole Kavanaugh thing set me back on my ass for a few days. When Trump was elected, I cried for a week. But then I started doing stuff. And you just get back in there when you can. And don't feel bad if you can't. Somebody else will pick up the baton and do some stuff while you're doing self-care.
There is no timer on your need to get back into the fight. When you feel you are ready, we are here to support you. Despite whatever goes on in the world, we believe you, and we will support you.
Yeah, and with all of that, I would only say to the men in the audience that, as and transitioning to talking about next is known to quote, women aren't asking for any exception because of their sex, simply that men be willing to remove their boots from women's necks.
And biased.
It's not a matter of elevating women to being above men. It's not about trusting what she said over what he said. It's about actually listening to what she has to say and recognizing that the system that we have created is really not prone to give both of those voices equal treatment. In a perfect world, yes, we could sit down and have an audience and let a man and a woman can have a equal debate about what might have occurred or a specific situation or a particular policy or any of these things. But the reality is, even if that table is set and even if those chairs are seated in by a man and a woman, the man's voice is going to sound different because of the context, because of the power, because of the situation that he's in and where he's speaking from. And so that being the reality, I'm not telling men to shut up. I'm not telling men to take everything that a woman says as truth. I'm simply saying that if you want to truly hear everybody is equal, you have to recognize that the table is not currently set for that. And so making some provisions to genuinely create an actual situation of equality is to make a pretty radical change to the way that we've been doing things so far.
Yep.
And I would suggest, just as a note, if you are introduced to a situation where you are asked to make a judgment, take the female's testimony and put a man's voice on it and ask, rather than what was she wearing, ask what was he wearing. Rather than asking where was he at that time of night, or rather than asking where was she at that time of night, ask where was he at that time of night. Ask why was he doing that thing.
How many drinks had he had?
I was about to say.
Sorry.
No, I was about to say, what were the number of drinks that he had?
Yeah.
What club was he at? Replace all of those pronouns and ask yourself, what do I believe?
Yep.
And then ask yourself, is it fair? I think that's the most important thing to take away from this episode is it fair? The answer, I think we can all agree, is no.
Absolutely. And I want to thank everybody for joining us as we have this conversation. I want to thank everybody who called in, especially Jose, who I know we kind of cut off there at the end as we were wrapping up. So we really do appreciate y'all joining us here every week, particularly when you call in. If there was something we didn't get a chance to respond to or something that we didn't get a chance to talk about, please feel free to shoot us an email. We'd love to answer that either over the internet or even on air. As we may, and we'd love to see you next week. Megan will be out, and so I'll be joined by
I will be out.
The wonderful Serafina Smith, as well as a wonderful third guest host, Michelle, who will be joining us. So she'll be ready to answer any of your questions about sexual health and gender. We're going to be looking at
Grab bag.
Yeah, it's just sort of a grab bag of options, as Michelle will be here as a registered nurse for any of your sexual health questions. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you then. And thank you for joining us tonight.
Bring all of the pus and ooze questions.
Yeah, all of your gory questions. Let's go ahead and get those out of the way.
Hey, and thank you to
and Christy will be in my chair next week.
Dead center.
Hey.
yeah, thank you to
So-
Vern and all them, or not Vern.
Yes.
Vern is usually on my
Thank
show.
you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you to
Our wonderful
Silas,
production crew,
Yeah.
Silas
And Mark,
in
of
particular.
course.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
on the other side of this wall.
they do all the hard work that makes this actually happen.
They do. We just sit here and look pretty.
God, I can't believe I just did that.
But again, thank y'all so much for joining us.
And please, if you like the show, please comment and like them and subscribe to the channel, as well as we have a Patreon, which is Patreon/Secular Sexuality. And I think that's all I have for this.
Yeah, and so until then, as we like to say in the immortal words of Dr. Daryl Ray, Thank you for joining us. We hope you learned something, and we hope that something we said knocked something loose so that maybe you're ready to turn off your computer or keep your computer open.
Hey, you know, there's always Pornhub and YouPorn.
Give yourself a nice big ol' orgasm. Or, better yet,
give yourself
somebody else
someone
one.
else an orgasm.
Right on.
Hey,
I like
see
that.
ya.
Bye.